This is Caitlin, your host of the NoSleep4Dramas Podcast, where we get no sleep and survive on coffee to watch just one more episode at night. Hello, and welcome back to the NoSleep4Dramas Podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin, and as you can see from the title of this episode, this is a very special episode. I am currently recording this episode on my birthday, May 20th, and I figured since it is my birthday this week, I would do a special episode that I really wanted to do for the blog, which I've been writing for the last 4 years, but there's never really a good way to do a Q&A on a blog unless you want to type out all the questions and then type out your answers. So I figured since I have a podcast now, I might as well do a Q&A with questions that people have asked me over the years and I just have never answered, or newly submitted questions that people submitted when I asked them for questions that they want me to answer on this episode on Instagram and Discord. If you ever have a question for me, you can always DM me on Discord or Instagram or even TikTok. I'm on TikTok as well. But thank you for everybody who did submit questions. I will give a shout out to you at the end of the episode. And also, as I said, some of these questions were submitted by me because people have asked these questions over the years and I either have already answered them and I just want to do a consolidated list of questions, or I never got the chance to answer them, and this is the first time I will answer them in this episode. So, as a celebration of my birthday and just, I don't know, something different for the podcast, have you guys get to know the host of this podcast more, I decided to do a Q&A. This is going to be split into 3 different sections. I thought this episode would actually be quite short, but I don't think it will be. I got a lot more questions than I thought I would. And then when I added my own, that just added more questions. So we have a lot of questions to get through. So there's going to be 3 sections. There's going to be intro questions, kind of like a little intro to myself, kind of the basic drama questions you kind of always get. A lot of these questions I've been asked over the years, so I'm just going to reintroduce myself and re-answer them. And then I got a lot of questions about the podcast and about dramas, which will be the next section. And then I got some questions from people who asked some questions that don't really fit into a category, so I just added them to the random section. So and I will answer anything. I'm an open book, so you can just ask anything, and these are kind of the questions that didn't really have a category, but I thought were fun and I would still answer them. So let's start with the intro questions. A lot of times I get asked, how long have you been watching dramas? And that will be my first question. I've been watching dramas for about 15 years. I started in 2008. And I'm not saying I have consecutively watched dramas for 15 years. There was a couple years in the mid 2010s, like 2014, 2016, that I didn't watch any dramas. And I know I've answered this, but I was in a location that I didn't have access to dramas. So I have not seen a lot of the specifically Korean dramas from 2014, 2015, 2016. They are on my list. But also when I was in college, I didn't have much time to watch dramas. So I did still watch dramas in college, but it was very few and far between. It wasn't until about 2017 when I had the time and I made the time to consecutively watch dramas, but I have been watching dramas on and off since 2008. And speaking of 2008, another question that I get a lot of the time is what is your first drama from every country? Because as you know, I review a lot of dramas from all the countries, and I know I've answered some of these before, maybe all of them. So for Korean dramas, I got Boys Over Flowers, and you know the story. I've said it millions of times. That was actually another question. What made you start watching dramas? I was bored. I was bored one day and I found the first episode of Boys Over Flowers broken up on YouTube in a million pieces, like 5 minutes per section. And I just clicked the playlist and I binged Boys Over Flowers. And that's pretty much the reason why I started watching dramas, is because I got bored one day and in 2008, and then after Boys Over Flowers I sought out more dramas. So that was another question I get asked a lot. What made you start watching dramas? But back to the other question, first dramas from every country. As I just said, Boys Over Flowers was my first Korean. Chinese was a crime drama called Memory Lost. It has 3 seasons with Bai Yu and Yang Rong. And so I watched all 3 of those seasons. I think my first Japanese drama, I honestly don't really remember, because it took a while. Like, I think I just randomly caught one on YouTube again, but I really actually don't remember my first Japanese drama, which is kind of scary because I feel like I should remember it. Or maybe I do, and it's blanking. I'm blanking right now. Oh, I know. It was Itazura Nakis, which is the Japanese version of, oh my god, the title's blanking. What is the title of that? It's like It Started With a Kiss or something. Playful Kiss is the Korean version. But basically, it's a really popular story that has been remade in every country you could possibly think of multiple times. And there was like a 1993 J-drama version that I did not watch. I watched the 2000 version or something. But that was my first, and there's 2 seasons, and I know I watched the first season, and that was my first Japanese drama, I want to say. And then obviously I watched more Japanese dramas after that. Let's see, I did Korean, Japanese, I did Taiwanese. Taiwanese is a little difficult because I watched a string of Taiwanese dramas at the same time, like one after the other. So I don't really remember absolutely positively what my first one was, but I want to say it was Someone Like You, which I mentioned in my favorite Taiwanese dramas of all time, or it was a drama called Refresh Man, which is an okay drama, but I think I have a bias to it because it was one of my very first Taiwanese dramas. It's either between one of those 2 dramas. It also could be Murphy's Law of Love, but I don't think it was. But it's between those 3. I just watched all 3 of them really, really close together, so I don't remember which one was absolutely the first one that I ever watched. And then Thai dramas, it was definitely a BL. And I want to say it was either, and I didn't start watching Thai dramas until 2020. It was very early, late. And I want to say Until We Meet Again was my first Thai drama. It was definitely a BL. I might have watched one before that. It might have been SOTUS too, but I definitely did not watch SOTUS in 2016 when it came out. It was maybe 2019 or something. But I'm almost positive it was Until We Meet Again, because I didn't watch Until We Meet Again in 2019 when it aired, but I watched it in 2020 during the pandemic. And then I quickly followed that up with a Lockhorn, which is one of my favorite Lockhorns ever. But I want to say it was Until We Meet Again. If it wasn't Until We Meet Again, it was another BL that probably wasn't very good because I don't remember it. So those are my first dramas from every country. Another question I get a lot of the times is fave genres or least fave genres, which I think I got asked by somebody when I asked for people to submit a question. As you know, I kind of live off of the mindset that I try everything once, but I will say my fave genre is thriller or crime. That's ones I'm always watching. I do like a good romance once in a while. It depends on the country, really. I feel like some countries do genres better than others. And I just have preferences when it comes to genres and countries. Like, for example, for some reason, kind of like romance dramas more from China versus Korea. But I like Korean crime dramas better, or Japanese too. Japanese has a very good romance, in my opinion. But then, for example, like BL dramas, Thai, obviously, I like the Thai BL dramas a lot. So I definitely have a fave genre as overall, and that is crime and thriller. But I think it depends on the country on what drama. Like, I have favorite genres based on other countries as well. My least favorite genre, I would have to say, is like anything set in high school, like youth. I just think I'm too old. Like, I used to like them, but I think I just grew out of it. I haven't really, unless it's like a thriller crime one, like a romance high school youth drama, it just doesn't appeal to me. And I tend to not watch them because I know I'm not going to like them. So that's probably the genre I least go towards. And then also like horror. I'm very specific when it comes to horror. Like, I have gotten better with horror in terms of like zombies, like possession. I don't do possession, like, no matter what. It's like I can't do possession or like demons, for example. So horror is also probably one of my least favorites. And then last question in my intro section is, what about Asian dramas do you love the most? I have gotten this question over the years, asked in various ways. And I think what drew me to Asian dramas is, well, it was the story. Well, it was two things. And I think a lot of people will say this. It's one, it was like the one season and done. Like, you got a full story in one season. I remember very early on in my drama watching career, it surprised me because I was expecting multiple seasons. And I think that's a draw for a lot of people. Two, it's just, I think based on like the American shows I used to watch, the story structure and the stories are better told, because in terms of like American shows, they're trying to go for multiple seasons, so the stories could be drawn out or not even fleshed out, or characters wouldn't be given depth, so on and so forth. Whereas in a one season Asian drama, you have to give depth to a character or flesh out a character or give a full story in 16, 20, 50 episodes, depending on the countries. I just think structurally the Asian dramas appealed to me more. And then also because I didn't know much about the Asian country cultures, especially growing up, the fact I was introduced to new cultures. I've always been a history person, and I loved learning about Asian history. So to find another medium that allowed me to learn about Asian history, even it was a fictional, like Korean historical dramas or Chinese historical dramas, even if it was a fictional story or fictional world, that still drew me to that type of thing. And then also just the fact that I got to learn about cultures and things I wasn't exposed to in my daily life living in Wisconsin appealed to me as well. I watched dramas and I never looked back, and now I barely watch American TV. I used to also love British TV. I watched a lot of British TV in high school, which I will still dabble in a little bit. My father used to joke that I should have been born in Britain because I watched so much British TV, like Doctor Who, for example. I love Doctor Who, but I primarily still watch Asian dramas, but I do have some American and British TV I keep up with as well. Okay, so that is all of my intro questions, and that last question was, what about Asian dramas do you love so much about it? So the next section is going to be all about the podcast and all about dramas in general. Question I got was, why did I start the podcast? And then the next question is, what motivated you to begin? So these two questions kind of go hand in hand. So I had been doing the blog. I started the blog in 2020 during the pandemic. Gave me something to do. And I had always wanted to do a blog or something. And at the time when I started the blog, I was not really confident in showing my face on social media or everything. So I thought the blog was the perfect way for me to still talk about dramas, but not have to show my face. Obviously, that has changed because I run social media now with my face on it. But first, I didn't. And then since I was doing the blog for 3 or 4 years, I still like blogging and I still like doing it, but I felt like I had been told over the years to start a podcast by various people who read my blog, other podcasters, but it was like, you would be so good at it, and I just never took the leap. And then come this year, I was like, why not? Like, why not try something? And at first I wasn't planning on I was planning on doing something else. And then I talked to various podcasters who all thought I should. And then I kind of like talked myself into doing a podcast by talking to these podcasters where I would I remember being up at like 2 a.m. one morning, just like thinking, and then I would just be messaging these people at 2 a.m. and they wouldn't be answering because it was 2 a.m. And I kind of just had full on conversations with myself where I talked myself into doing a podcast because I really didn't have a reason not to do it. And I was really trying to find one. And then when I didn't, I was like, okay, I guess I'm starting a podcast. But really, what motivated me to begin was, one, I wanted to try something new. I wanted to challenge myself. But two, was the podcasters I have made friends with and have been guests on their podcast. And I like doing the podcast. So seeing how they enjoyed making their podcast and how I enjoyed guesting on their podcast, that kind of motivated me to begin. And then also what motivated me is there's just some things I can't really write out on a blog. For instance, this Q&A, like as I said, it would just be really boring for you guys to read a Q&A on a blog. Like it can be done, but I just thought it would be really boring. And so a podcast would be a better way to submit questions, to answer them, that type of thing. So there was just some things that I have always wanted to do, but like the blog wasn't the greatest medium to do those things, and I felt okay, podcast episode would be a better fit in doing that type of stuff. So there's some things that I have in my head that I want to do that would be perfect podcast form versus a blog post form. All right, so that was why did I start the podcast, or what motivated me to begin. Next question. What has been the best thing about starting a podcast? What has been the best thing about starting a podcast? I think there's multiple things. One, I don't always have to do a blog post to match with the podcast episode. I can do like some one-off special episode, which has helped me in not getting like burnt out on the podcast episodes or the blog, because when I first started the podcast, I was like, God, how am I going to keep up with the blog, but also do the podcast episodes? And I just have learned there's some things you don't need to do a blog post for, and it would be a much easier thing to do in a podcast episode. So that has been great because it's like it gives me more leniency what to put out, because either it's in podcast form or blog post or both. Like you guys are still getting something to read or to listen to. But also it's just like I've always liked I've started the blog because I liked interacting with people talking about Asian dramas, and the blog allowed me to like send stuff into the internet and people would message me or comment on it, and that would keep up the conversation. And the podcast episodes kind of just continued that, like the interactions with people who like the same topics or the same dramas, or just need a space to discuss dramas when they don't have that in their own lives, which is why I created the blog in the first place, because no one in my life really watches dramas. So it was a way for me to talk about things I like. And I think that's a common thing with a lot of people who watch Asian dramas. They seek that type of space online. So that has been really the best thing, is just people reaching out, DMing, commenting, saying like, this episode was great. I can't believe you're watching this drama. I feel like I'm the only one. We of course have the Discord to talk about stuff. So that really has been great in terms of just having another medium other than the blog to discuss dramas and to discuss my thoughts on certain dramas or even Asian drama land in general. What has been the most challenging? I probably time management. Like even though it is sometimes easier just to put out a podcast episode or just do the blog post, like I still have a life. So like for example, this past 2 weeks, I usually record the at least I usually write the blog post at least like to accompany the podcast episode on the weekend. And I will even maybe record on the weekend, usually in the mornings. And so if I'm away from my podcast stuff on the weekends, like I have been the last couple weeks, there's no podcast episode. Like I'm not going to try and work like I don't want to burn out, so I'm going to like my quote unquote breaks are just going to be like, okay, I can't record one this week because I'm out of town. That will be my break type thing. So the most challenging is just like trying to plan ahead and either decide if I want to do a podcast episode or be okay with not releasing one. And that's the same with the blog. I mean, there's always been a thought process when it comes to the blog in general, where like I used to feel really bad if I didn't get a blog post out for the week or multiple even, because I used to do 3 at a time, 3 a week. And I've over the years of writing it, I've really had to be okay and not feel guilty about missing a week, and that be okay for me in order that I don't burn out and in order the fact I do get a break, especially because I don't really know if I'm going to do seasons on the podcast episodes where I'll do like 6 months of podcast and then take a month off or something. I haven't really decided that schedule yet. So to allow me the grace of if I don't plan out the podcast episodes and I don't pre-record them before I have to go on vacation or something, I have to be okay with that. And I've learned over the years to be okay with that. But yeah, the most challenging I think has been time management because I still guest on things and I still love guesting on podcast episodes. It definitely time management too. Also, like I would say a challenging thing too is coming up with ideas. Like there's certain months where I know everything. How I plan out the blog posts as well as the podcast episodes, I've been doing this for years, is I'd like do it by month. So I write out the months, I figure out what's coming out in the months, and I know a month in advance what I'm doing. And sometimes like something comes up and I can't do the podcast episode or I can't do the blog, like an emergency or somebody wants to get dinner or something, like something comes up and I just can't do it. I will either skip that week or I'll just move everything and shift everything around. But sometimes it's coming up with ideas. Like maybe like I'm waiting to review a drama, but it's not done for another month. Well, I can't review like what I do. Do I start another drama to have a review in that month? Do I make another list? Like it's I have to sometimes I have difficulty coming up with what to write about or what to talk about. But also I like that challenge too because I like the challenge of coming up with ideas and coming and being creative about it. So that was the most challenging about the podcast. Most unexpected. Honestly, the unexpected is like people actually listen to the podcast. Which I don't know why it was so unexpected. Like I'm sure a lot of you guys have read the blog over the years. So I don't know why it was so unexpected, but I really wasn't expecting people to listen or listen at the rate that they have been listening. So honestly, it's just like the amount of people who comment about, oh, I love the podcast, or I love that you're going to do an episode on this drama or whatever, whatever. Like, I just didn't expect that, but I don't know what I really expected. So I guess that was the most unexpected, I guess. Okay, so the next question is a drama question. K-drama, C-drama, and J-drama recommendations for people. So, I think this really depends on the person you're trying to recommend to. If you know that they like, for example, crime dramas, I would say recommend a crime drama for them. So, like, for example, with Korean dramas, I always will recommend the first season of Voice or the K-drama Tunnel. Those are some classic, really good Korean dramas. If you know, I also, of course, will recommend Stranger always, but like as someone who's never seen an Asian drama, you have to really pay attention to Stranger because it's very complicated. So I wouldn't recommend that as like a first watch for anybody, but I know people who have watched that and that be their first Korean drama and they now love Korean dramas. So it really depends on like who you're going to be recommending this to. If they want an easy breezy crime drama, don't do Stranger. If they are okay with having to pay attention and really be in a like confusing Korean drama that will tie everything together at the end, but you don't know what's going on until the end, I would recommend Stranger. So it really depends. For romance dramas, for Korean dramas, I really love The Tale of Nokdu. It's a historical drama. You have a little bit of comedy, you have a little bit of seriousness. I love the acting. Like it's a really sweet Korean romance drama. I also really like the romance drama Find Me in Your Memory. Now, a lot of people might not like this because they are sick of the romance versus crime, like crime in a romance drama, but I just love the chemistry of this, and I think it's a really easy, especially if you are recommending this to somebody who might like that crossover of crime and romance together. I Find Me in Your Memory is a great recommendation. And then of course, Kingdom. Like if you are talking to somebody who loves the zombie genre, Kingdom, you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong with Kingdom. When it comes to Japanese dramas, I would recommend. So for romance, if you are recommending somebody who likes romance dramas, I would do Sensei Don't You Know. And also, I'm not really doing this on like where they are on the streaming site. Like obviously we know Kingdom is on Netflix, Strangers on Netflix, but like Find Me in Your Memory is not on Netflix, or Hey Sensei Don't You Know is not on Netflix. So I'm just shouting out dramas no matter where they are. If you are recommending to somebody in terms of like a crime genre, I would definitely recommend Erased on Netflix. It's one of my favorite Japanese crime dramas. Also in the romance department, I really like the romance drama. What is it called? It's called I'm going to butcher this. Shane Marriage Honey is a really nice romance drama too. And then if you want more of like zombie action thriller, I would definitely recommend Alice in Borderland on Netflix. That's a really good intro to people who like a thriller type thing. And then when it comes to C dramas are all over the place. Romance dramas. I mean, Till the End of the Moon is like one of my top romance dramas. It's a shinsha. Like if you have a friend who's really into like magic and fantasy, you can't go wrong with the shinsha genre. Till the End of the Moon, of course. Love Like the Galaxy is a great romance drama. If you're more into like crime, I would highly recommend The Murderous Affair in Horizon Tower, or like My Roommate is a Detective. That's my top crime. But also I just watched The Bad Night, which is really good in terms of crime drama. Something different though, if you want more of like, especially if it's an anime lover, Hikaru no Go is a Chinese adaptation of an old anime. It's brilliant. It's so good. So those are some of my recommendations. It really depends on who you're talking to, though. Like, you can't just like recommend a drama. You have to know kind of what they already like, and then that's my strategy. You kind of have to know what they already like. Then like my next question is, who, for people who have never watched an Asian drama before, what would be your recommendations? That's the second part of this question. You definitely have to know what they like before you recommend stuff. I wouldn't just like give a romance recommendation to somebody who doesn't like romance. Like, they're never going to watch it, or they're not going to like it and then never watch another Asian drama again. So I would say recommend stuff that match what they already like, with whatever TV they watch already. All right, so that was Korean, Chinese, and J-drama recommendations for people who have never watched an Asian drama before. I definitely have more recommendations, so you can always message me if you want more. Okay, so another one is, between K-dramas and C-dramas, do you have a fave if you had to choose? So this is a loaded question. If you had asked me this probably 5 years ago, I would hands down say Korean. Because one, I had not watched a lot of Chinese dramas and really had no solid knowledge of Chinese dramas. So immediately it would have been Korean. Now, though, I still like Korean dramas, but I feel like, at least in the last couple years, I have not enjoyed as many Korean dramas as I used to. I know I still watch a ton because I watch them airing, but overall, I have tried more Chinese dramas and liked more Chinese dramas. I would have to say nowadays it's probably Chinese. I probably would, if I had to drop Korean, I would be fine with that, which I know is like scandalous for me to say. But really, I mean, I started the blog because I wanted to talk about things that weren't just Korean dramas. I watched other things other than Korean dramas, and I was already writing a blog on just Korean dramas. So I started the blog to talk about everything else I was watching. And I just feel like the Korean dramas in the last couple of years, there's some that have been great and I've loved, and others I just were like, either I dropped it or I was like, it was okay. It wasn't the greatest, but it wasn't the worst. Whereas Chinese dramas, I'm sure I have those same feelings, but I guess I just have been more picky in what I choose to watch in terms of Chinese dramas, and I've loved them. So, and there's also a ton of Chinese dramas because I don't watch them airing because I can never keep up. I have not seen, and a lot of ones that people love that I have not seen. So I think that's the other component, is there's so many Chinese dramas I have not seen and I want to watch, but I'm still watching a lot of Korean dramas. I just don't have the time, and I would love to have more time to watch Chinese dramas. So I would probably say for now it would be my fave are Chinese dramas, just from that thinking that I have. So that was a question, between K-drama and C-drama, do you have a fave if you had to choose? Next question, how to introduce people to Asian dramas? As I just said above, I think you kind of just have to know what they already watch and what they like, and then recommend stuff that will match that. Like, if you know they watch a lot of romance dramas, recommend romance. If you know they watch a lot of crime, recommend crime dramas. If you know they watch a lot of witchy, fantasy, supernatural dramas, recommend from those genres. I think you just have to match what they like. I would also recommend starting out with small number episodes. Like, Chinese dramas have great web dramas that are only 12 to 15 episodes, and then they can test the waters, see what they like. Korean dramas have mini Korean dramas. J dramas are very short. Like, I would say build them up to the longer dramas, or to like Korean dramas that are 20 episodes. I wouldn't recommend that one straight away to somebody, because that's a lot of story. They might be overwhelmed. So I would say work up to the higher episodes. And every country has shorter dramas. Like, it's not like you have to start with just Korean or just Thai or whatever. But I wouldn't go about saying like, "Oh my god, this is my favorite drama of all time, you need to watch it." And then when they don't like it because that's not their genre, I wouldn't be mad by that either. Like, you need to recommend things that they will all like, not just because you like it. Because I have found that I recommend things and they don't like it, and then I learn later that they don't like that genre. And then I'm like, "Well, why didn't you say that when I recommended it? I would have recommended something else." So I would definitely go about recommending things that match what they already watch. Okay, so next one. Am I enjoying the pod? Yes, absolutely. I would not be doing the podcast if I did not enjoy doing it. As I said, like there's something about sitting down and recording an episode versus like writing everything out. That in my mind is easier. And also I've said this too, where like sometimes I'll have so many ideas with the blog and I don't have enough time. So like it's fun. Like for example, I want to do more drama reviews. But I have found, because I've done so many blog posts and have so many like ongoing series with the blog, I don't do a lot of drama reviews. So the podcast allows me to do more drama reviews and allows people to get reviews of dramas they want to hear about. And then also allows me to write more of those reviews, because then I will have to make a blog post, or could make a blog post to match that podcast episode. I have done some special podcast episodes that are just the review and not the blog post, but I like the fact that the podcast is making me do more reviews, because I have seen over the last year or so with the blog that I have not done as many drama reviews as I would have liked. But yes, I do enjoy doing the podcast. I like talking about things, and I like talking about Asian dramas, but it also allowed me to be guests on other people's podcasts, and allows me to build this community I already built with the blog. And people might not even have found me through the blog, but through the podcast. So I definitely enjoy doing the podcast. Speaking of the podcast, when do you plan on having guests on the pod? I think this year I probably won't. It probably will be a next year thing. Because I'm so new to podcasting, I kind of want to get more confident in being a host and being a podcaster. But probably not till next year, just to have like 1 year under my belt of being a podcast host. But I do want guests, though. I do want to bring guests on. So that definitely will happen eventually. But I think I will take it slow and kind of just see what works, what doesn't, what you guys like. But there definitely will be guests on this podcast. I just am not going to rush it or anything like that. Okay, so next question. How do I watch so many dramas at one time? I think the big thing is I watch airing Korean dramas. The fact that I only have to watch 1 to 2 episodes a week of an airing Korean drama helps a lot versus having to watch all 16 episodes. I also am not a binger. I've learned unless I'm like loving the drama, which is very few and far between, I can't binge a drama. So I usually hop around a lot, which means like watching 1 or 2 of episodes of one drama and then going and watching 1 or 2 episodes of another drama. Because if I try to binge, I feel like I get bored, and then my rating of that drama goes down. And I don't want that just because I'm bored. I tend to hop around a lot because it will keep my interest, and I won't just get bored and drop something or downrate it. So pretty much the reason why I'm watching so many dramas is I do a mix of airing Korean dramas and completed dramas, but I also hop around, and that's why I watch so many dramas, because I will hop around and watch 1 or 2 episodes at a time. And I need a lot of dramas to do that. Okay, so next question, kind of like in the same line of how to introduce people to Asian dramas, is have you ever converted someone to watch dramas? I don't think I've ever converted someone fully, like they have dropped all American shows and everything else they've watched and are just watching Asian dramas now. But I definitely have gotten people to watch a Asian drama. Squid Game, for example, or my cousins watch some crime dramas that I recommend them, like Death's Game, for example. They watch Death's Game and they watched The Killing Vote from last year. And I think they watch like Alice in Borderland too. Like, so it's like kind of like one-offs. I've never truly converted somebody who is now only watching Asian dramas, but I definitely have gotten people to watch a drama or watch a movie. But never fully 100% just watching Asian dramas, no. Which is why I started the podcast and the blog, because there was nobody else to talk to about that. Next question. Do you ever get FOMO? I think this meant like, do I ever get FOMO in terms of I'm not watching a certain drama while everybody else is watching? Absolutely, I do. But mostly it has to do with Chinese dramas because, again, I can't watch Chinese dramas as they air. Like, they just go way too fast for me. So, yeah, there's definitely multiple Chinese dramas that I still haven't watched that were really popular and everybody loves them, and I still haven't watched. And I watched them like 3 years later. So, yeah, I definitely get FOMO. Particularly with the Chinese dramas. A lot of the Chinese dramas I get FOMO on. But sometimes I kind of fix that FOMO too because I'm like, well, if people love this drama, I will definitely like still have people to talk about it with. I'll just be talking about it with them 3 years later. Or if I do a review on it, people will be nostalgic and love to listen to it. But yes, I definitely still get FOMO. Absolutely. Okay, so next question. Do you have any rituals or things I do before posting a podcast episode? Because you mentioned you get nervous when you post an episode. I don't really think I have any rituals, but I've learned over the years, this also has to do with like podcast episodes too, or like blog post episodes. But at first, when I like do a podcast episode or I do a blog post, I'm like, is anybody ever going to listen to this? Are people, you have those intrusive thoughts of no one's going to listen to this. Why am I even doing this? No one's going to read this. No one cares. I think it happens a lot for me more because one of the things and the goals I did for the blog and the podcast is I tend to watch dramas that not everybody else is watching and then highlight those dramas for people to know about these dramas that they exist, or they might be looking at a drama and be like, I don't know if I should watch this, and then I will watch it and they're like, oh, Caitlin liked it, I'll try it. I try to find the obscure dramas that people might not know exist or might not be watching and then find the gems within that pile. But that has caused me to sometimes have those intrusive thoughts of like, God, do I do a review on this because no one has watched it? Like, no one will read it, no one will listen to it, those type of things. Or like, why am I even doing this? Because no one cares, like that type of thing. Like, that's just been over the years type thing. What I've learned between all of those thoughts and also just like starting doing social media with the reels and the TikTok is who cares? Like, just post it, just do it. Like, if you are enjoying it, if you are enjoying a drama and you want to talk about it and you think it's the best thing in the world, just talk about it. Just post it. Like, that's kind of what I've learned. That's what I've had to say over the years, is just say, you love this drama. You want to do this. You want to do this episode. You want to do this blog post. You want to squeal about this on social media. Just post it. Just make it and post it. Because who knows? People might not even know it exists, and then they'll find out about the drama and watch it, and it's their new favorite thing. Like, that's kind of my thought process. I don't have any like specific rituals or anything I do before posting anything. If I have those intrusive thoughts, I just be like, just post it. That's pretty much all I do. Is there a show you wish you watched as it was airing? Plenty. Again, there's a ton of C-dramas I wish I had watched while it was airing. Because one of the funnest things about watching dramas is talking with people about them. Also, you get spoiled up the wazoo nowadays. So, like, if you don't keep up with dramas, you get spoiled all the time. And I kind of had to live with the fact that I'm going to be spoiled with Chinese dramas because and Korean dramas if I fall behind. Any drama, really. But absolutely, there's a ton of Chinese dramas either I watched later and wish I had watched as it aired, or I haven't even watched yet and I wish that they aired, like Mysterious Lotus Casebook or like Till the End of the Moon. I wish I had watched that when it was airing. You know, that type of thing. Or like there's Fox Spirit Matchmaker that's about to air. I'm probably not going to watch that as it airs, which I know I'll get FOMO from that. You know, it's like there's always, especially Chinese drama, there's always a Chinese drama that I'm getting FOMO from. And I wish I would have watched as it aired in order to talk to people about them. But that's kind of just the bed I made to lay in because I just can't keep up with airing Chinese dramas. Okay, next one. How do you manage your time doing a podcast, blog, research, keeping up with the latest and watching dramas? Is this your day job or do you have another job? I wish this was my day job. It is not. It is a hobby. It is a all-consuming hobby, but I love it. I have another. I do actually have a day job. I work from home. I work in the tech industry as a product owner. How do I manage my time? So the thing is I'm an introvert at heart. I'm a homebody, so I tend to stay at home a lot. The pandemic helped a lot because it was like the perfect excuse to not go out. I am trying to be better of actually going out and making friends, and especially because I just moved to Chicago and I don't know many people here. So I'm trying to make an effort to meet people and have somewhat of a social life. But I will say the pandemic did help because I did not leave my apartment for like 3 years and use that excuse because of it. But really, it's making the time. I love doing it. I love doing the podcast. I love blogging. I love watching dramas. I love everything about what I'm doing with the podcast and the Asian dramas, so I make time to do it. Most of the time I do it on Saturday and Sunday mornings. I'm an early riser. I wake up by 7 most mornings. And so I just go get breakfast and then I sit down and blog or sit down and record a podcast episode. And then I'm done by noon too. And usually most of my plans happen in the afternoon and evening. So if I do have something social going on, it's not usually in the mornings. And if something does come up, if I do go home for the weekend or like my parents' house or my friend calls and is like, hey, do you want to get brunch? I'll just skip that day. I mean, it's not like I have to record or write the blog post on a Saturday, you know? So it's kind of like a juggling act where there's definitely days where I'm like, oh, I do not want to write this blog post or I don't want to record this podcast episode. But I think it helps that I am a homebody and I'm an introvert. And so I sometimes use it as an excuse, but most of the time it's just like making time because I love it so much. Like I record stuff on the weekdays. I do blog posts on the weeknights. And yes, I do have a day job, so I am working during the week. But really it's just managing your time. It's like, okay, I have this drama I have to finish this week because I'm going to do an episode. I will prioritize that drama. Or okay, I have a lunch break, I'll watch an episode during my lunch break. It's kind of choices and also what helps, as I said, like I plan out by month. So I know months in advance, like 2 or 3 months in advance, what I'm going to be podcasting on. So that helps a lot because like if I know I'm going to have a review coming up at the end of May, I know I have to keep up with this drama or I know I have to finish this drama by May, you know? So that also helps on having a schedule and like trying really hard not to change the schedule. But I will if I have to. But overall, I enjoy doing it. It's a hobby. I enjoy talking with you guys and researching and keeping up with the new dramas and talking about the dramas I'm watching. It's not really a chore for me. It's a hobby. So I enjoy doing it. I think what also helps is a lot of my friends know that I do the podcast and know that it's important to me. They don't like schedule around my podcast episodes or anything, but like they know that, hey, Caitlin has a recording this morning. Let's do lunch or something. But it's not like I expect them. It's not like I expect them to schedule around my schedule. Because again, I'll change it if I need to. But I'm also not doing something every night. Like I leave my apartment. I have gotten better with that, but I'm still an introvert and a homebody at heart. Next question. How often do you watch Asian dramas instead of full dramas? I do not watch many Asian movies. Sorry. How often do you watch Asian movies instead of full dramas? I don't watch a lot of movies. I want to. I want to watch more. But I don't watch a lot of Asian movies. I have a list of Asian movies a mile long to watch as well. So if you want me to review any Asian movies, let me know. What are some of your favorite Asian films? Okay, so I have two that immediately come to mind. Godzilla Minus one of the best, probably my favorite movie from last year, hands down. I didn't see many movies, but my favorite movie, hands down, Godzilla Minus One. If you are a monster person, you need to watch this movie. Another movie that I always love is the Korean movie series. I'm going to butcher the title, so I'm going to quickly look it up because I always mix the words around. So it's the Korean movie series Along with the Gods. Great movies. I love those movies so much. I can't wait for more to come out in the series. I think the first two are out and they're in the process of making the third. I think there's supposed to be like 5 movies in total. Along with the Gods Along with the Gods movie series is really good, top notch. I also love the movie Spellbound. It is from 2011, and it has Lee Min Ki and Sung Ye Jin in it. He encounters a girl who can talk to ghosts and see ghosts, and it's cute and it's funny and it's a little scary because it's ghosts, but I have always loved that movie. And of course, you have the classic crime movies like the ones about like the serial killers and things like that. Memories of a Murderer, I think it's called. There's like 2 different Korean movies that are based off of actual crimes, and both of them have memories in it, and I always mix those 2 up. But like Memories of a Murderer, I think is one of them. That is a great movie. Memories of a Murder. That's what it is. Memories of a Murder. Great movie. But again, it's based off of real life crime. So that's like and then the other one is Memoir of a Murderer. Those are the 2 that I distinctly remember. I love those 2 movies. Really good. Okay, so next question. What is the most discouraging thing so far about being immersed in Asian dramas fan culture? So I got into K-pop and Asian dramas at the same time, and I think it's the same thing. Like, it's not that serious. Like, both with like toxic fan culture in general, both with dramas and K-pop or music in general, like across the board. It's not just Korean. It's like Chinese, Japanese, like they all have toxic fans. So it's never fun to see the toxicity come out of the fandom and people getting canceled because of it, or some horrible crimes happening because of it, or like no privacy happening, that type of thing. But I also, because I started watching in 2008, just the rise of the popularity of Asian dramas and then social media to grow with that, and the toxicity coming out of social media because of that, where you really can't have an opinion because people will come at you. And I like to be a content creator for Asian dramas these days, you kind of have to really not care what people think and not be affected by people when they DM you or comment under a video or comment under a podcast episode or a blog post saying like, how can you hate this drama? It's the greatest, blah, blah, blah. Or you're just really old. You don't understand the nuances of this new drama, blah, 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 blah. Like I've been called every name in the book over the years. And that's just from voicing my opinion. And it's kind of one of those things where you have to accept, like, they're going to be around. It's going to be around. That has not been fun. Like, just like being exposed to that and then kind of coming to terms of like, do I really want to continue doing this when I have this thrown at me? And I think social media didn't help this at all, because early on it was a thing, but not really. And also just the growing popularity of Asian dramas in general and K-pop, of there was more people who liked it, and that brought in more people who had an opinion about it. So it just that just has not been fun over the years. But you kind of learn to deal with it. You kind of learn to not care anymore. Like, you talk about what you like and you talk about what you dislike, and you don't really care what people think. And if it really gets bad, of course you pay attention to it, but like a lot of times you just kind of ignore the toxicity and ignore the things people might say to you over the years. But that really has not been fun. But on the other completely side, of course, is we have this community online that you can talk Asian dramas with, and I've met some of my greatest friends through this and through talking about Asian dramas and music. And God, I would not have survived the pandemic if the social media didn't exist or Asian dramas didn't exist. So like, it's kind of one of those things where you like accept the good with the bad, because the good most of the time outweighs the bad. But yeah, that is probably the thing I have least liked about it. But I've seen that coming. It's like the rise of social media, the popularity grows. Of course, people are going to come in with their own opinion and not agree with your opinion. I mean, that's kind of a given, and you kind of have to live with that. Next question and last question about podcasts before we move on to the random section. Do you have actors or actresses you've bought stock in and watch most of their projects? Of course I do. I have too many to count. I think off the top of my head, for example, Chinese actors. Alan Ren, I think I've watched pretty much everything he's been in except for a couple of the most recent dramas. I love him. He's great. Li Chen, Tianzin Mystic, he just had a drama nowadays like Will Love in Spring or something. I've watched pretty much everything he has been in. I love him. Bai Yu, the same thing. Bai Yu I've been watching forever. He's amazing. I can name a ton of people. But those are probably 3 Chinese actors. I've watched a lot of their dramas. When it comes to Chinese actresses, Yang Rong, I have not watched a ton of her dramas because I want to keep them on the back burner, and so I always have something. But she was my first Chinese actress. I love her. I would say Yang Mi, I will always watch her in something. A new one that I definitely will watch is Sun Zhenni. She was the second female lead in Till the End of the Moon. I will watch her in anything. I love her. And then, of course, Bailu, but that's kind of a given. For Korean actors, I think everybody kind of knows this. Jang Jung-yoon, I love him. I've seen a ton of his stuff. He's great. Ha Jun, I love Ha Jun. I haven't watched a ton of his, but I'll watch him in anything. Kanteo, I love Kanteo. I've seen him in a lot of his stuff. And probably Lee Jae-hoon is my next one I've seen. Oh, and then Jang Ki-young. There's a lot of Korean actors and actresses that I watch a lot of their stuff, and I've been watching forever. What I do, I have on my drama list, I have a list of actors and actresses that I just like put in there if I love, and I'll watch more of their stuff. So that's what I do mostly. A lot of times when I want to pick a new drama is I go to their filmography and pick one that I haven't seen, especially if it's a completed drama. Thai actor, Tor. I will watch anything that Tor's in, and he's probably my favorite Thai actor. Let's see. Korean actresses, Bae Doona, I will watch her in anything. I've watched her in a lot of stuff. Hana, I like her a lot. She was in Voice. I love her in Voice. Anybody else who kind of hops off the page? Stephanie Lee, I wish would do more. I loved her in Last Empress and Partners for Justice. I wish she would do more. Actually, I have watched a lot of Ok Jae-yeon. I've watched like 4 of her dramas. She was in The Uncanny Counter, Mine, The Veil. And that was kind of accidental. I didn't know that I watched so many of her dramas, but I like her a lot too. Jung So-min was one of my first Korean actresses, so I like her a lot. Japanese, there's one Japanese actor that there's multiple, but there's one. He will forever be my favorite, and that is Furukawa Yuki. He was in my first Japanese drama ever, Itazura na Kiss, so I love him. He's great. Japanese actresses. I love Taike Emi. I'm probably going to butcher that. I've seen a lot of her dramas. She's great. That's pretty much it that I can think of off the top of my head. I know there's some Taiwanese actors that I love as well. And Taiwanese actresses too, honestly. For Taiwanese actresses, Janine Chang, I love Janine Chang. Also, Lorraine Jen, but she was in my first Taiwanese drama, so I have a bias with her. But that's a lot. But mostly it's Chinese and Korean because I've watched a lot more dramas of them versus anything else. All right, so those are all the questions I got from the podcast section. So now we're going to go into random questions that I got. And again, these are like random fun questions that people sent that didn't really have a category or theme. Kind of just like learn more information about me in general, I guess. So first question is, have I or would I like to travel to see where any dramas have been filmed? So I have never traveled to see specifically drama locations, but I have been to both Korea and Japan. Also Quebec, which I think is where Goblin was filmed. And that was before I watched Goblin, though. So, I wouldn't know, I would have to, go back and find them. But I have been to Korea and Japan. I wasn't specifically looking for film locations, though. So I don't really remember if I've seen any film locations. I'm sure I have in Korea or in Japan, actually. Because Korea, I was only there for 3 days. 2 or 3 days, so it was a very short visit. I would love to go back to Korea because there was many places I didn't get to. Actually, I probably would love to go back to Japan as well because I love Japan in general. I was there for 10 days. So I have not traveled to specifically see drama sites, but I have been to Japan and Korea. I've never been to China. I would love to go to China at some point in my lifetime, but I don't know if that will happen. Okay, fave food, snack, and or drink. Fave food. I am such a foodie. I love food. I love to cook food. I love to eat food. I'm one of those people where you take me to a restaurant and you're like, I want to try this, but I don't want to order it. Can you order it? And if I don't like it, can you eat it? I will eat anything. I love Asian food. I cook a lot of Asian food. So I probably would say Asian food, like sushi or a lot of Korean food, like silken tofu soup or something like that. I love Asian food. I love Asian food. Snack. I discovered during the pandemic I have a sweet tooth, which I never thought I would. But my favorite candy is Sour Patch Kids. Love Sour Patch Kids. I also love a good Oreo. I love ice cream. Mint chocolate chip is my favorite ice cream. And then I love a good potato chip, or chips and salsa. But I never thought I had a sweet tooth until the pandemic happened. Drink Diet Coke. I drink a lot of Diet Coke and coffee. But Diet Coke. I drink a ton of Diet Coke. What would my last meal on earth be? That is a hard question because, again, I love Asian food so much. But I do love my mom's mac and cheese, like homemade. I know how to make it myself, so I make it a lot. But it's like homemade mac and cheese with bread and sharp cheddar cheese and butter and noodles. And I probably would have that as my last meal because I love it so much. But I love Asian food so much. Next question. Do I watch reality TV? I do not watch American reality TV because it's just not for me. I've tried multiple times. I do love watching variety shows, though, like Korean, Chinese, Japanese variety shows. Specifically, for some reason, I like watching the romance ones. So I've watched Heart Signal, all the renditions of Heart Signal that China and Korea and Japan have all made. I love that. I'm a sucker for that. Terrace house for Japan. I love terrace house. Like, give me a group of people in a house and they either have to live together and just survive or they like fall in love. Like, that's me. I also love the variety show I Live Alone. That's a Korean variety show. I could do a podcast episode on variety shows I love because anything with food, I love multiple food ones. So yeah, I definitely watch reality shows, but it's like Asian variety shows. It's not American reality shows like the Kardashians or anything. I don't watch that type of show. I do love a good like Food Network reality show. I don't know if that counts, like Chopped or like Top Chef. Still love that. I also watch like House Hunters sometimes, like HDTV. Give me a House Hunters episode. I love that. But mostly it's Asian variety shows now. What has been the best experience or day from the last year? This is specifically because obviously this is my birthday podcast episode. Well, this podcast, I think I do not regret starting this podcast. I love doing it. I loved making it, but also I moved to Chicago last year. So the experience of living closer to family and being able to be involved in family, but also exploring a new city of Chicago has been great because, again, I love food. Chicago has a great food scene. And then also the summer in Chicago is beautiful and really nice to be in. So I thought I would have trouble settling into Chicago and I really haven't. It's been great and I don't regret it whatsoever. So just the idea of living in a new city and exploring a new city has been great. Another big thing that's happened in my life in the last year, which I think has been one of the most valuable things that happened, is I became an aunt. And also just like the act of moving to Chicago and moving closer to my family so I can visit them more and see my niece more and just be around when my niece was born. Um, that has been very special for me. So on top of just moving to Chicago and getting to know a new city and getting to meet people, just being closer to family and becoming an aunt and um, being there for these milestones of both my sister as a mother, but also my niece, and knowing I'll be around for those milestones as my niece grows up. Um, that is just something I didn't know I missed being further away from my family living in DC until I moved back to the Midwest and Chicago and then was able to participate more in those meaningful parts of your life when you are involved with your family and have this special moments with the family. So becoming an aunt was really, really special for me this past year. And I really can't describe how I felt when I met her for the first time because I was one of the first people in my family to meet my niece. So that was really special for me over the past year as well. Next question. What are you looking forward to the most in accomplishing in your upcoming birthday year? Really, again, it's the podcast. Like, I love the podcast and I love thinking of things to do and I love expanding on things that I've already done and being creative with it. I would also love to do like an art class, like a clay or paint pottery or drawing. I actually grew up going to art schools. So I was always doing drama or playing instruments or doing art or dancing or whatever. It was like all the arts we studied. And I would love to get back in doing like an art class. And so I'm probably going to try and see if I can find an art class in Chicago to do, or at least like do a class a month and try different art things and see if I like something. But I really like the podcast, so definitely would. My goal is to do more podcasting, I guess. The last question I have is, what dramas are you looking forward to? So I'm not going to name like every single one that is coming because there's a lot. Of course, we have Fox Spirit Matchmaker. Red Moon Pact, which just announced its premiere date. I'm definitely looking forward to that one. Connection, which is the Korean drama that airs at the end of the week. I'm looking forward to that. I hope it comes to Vicky. I don't really have much in June I'm looking forward to in terms of Korean. The Player 2, I loved the first season of The Player, so I am looking forward to that. I hope we get that. But really, in terms of Korean dramas, that's like the only one in June I'm looking forward to. So I guess I'm looking forward to, so those are 3 dramas I am looking forward to. Other ones, I think I'm just looking forward to watching ones that have been in my list to watch forever, like, I don't know, Mysterious Lois Casebook, for example, and maybe bring some of those completed dramas into the mix, since I've only looking forward to like one Korean drama next month. But that's all the questions I got. Thank you guys for listening to this episode, kind of celebrating my birthday, getting to know me more. Thanks to everybody who submitted a question. Shout out to, and if I butcher your name, I'm sorry. Shout out to Yen Baby Blue, Korean True Crime Podcast, Tea and Soju Podcast, Daebak K Rambles Podcast, N Drama, Panda Manda, and RAR. Thank you for submitting your questions. I had a lot of fun answering them. And thank you for listening to this birthday celebration podcast for the No Sleep for Dramas. And I will talk to you in the next episode. If you want to continue the conversations about dramas that were started in this episode, you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter under the username NoSleep4Dramas. That is no sleep, the number 4 dramas, just like in the title of the podcast. This podcast is also an expansion of my blog, so you can visit my blog at www.NoSleep4Dramas.com, the number 4 dramas.com, and find multiple years of blog posts already available at your fingertips. All links are in the description of this episode. This has been an episode of the No Sleep for Dramas podcast, and I am your host, Caitlin. I will see you here next time, and I hope you get no sleep chasing the next episode just like me. Good night.